Hey everyone, I'm Nodvoro, and welcome to Too Long Didn't Play, a series where we recap all the games you haven't had time to play, or you just don't want to. In today's episode, we're covering Arcane's critically and commercially underrated masterpiece, Prey, which was released in 2017. As with all Too Long Didn't Play recaps, to keep things interesting, we had a unique counter to each game, and today's is going to be the I can't believe IGN gave this a 4 out of 10 counter, where we're going to tally up all the moments that left me absolutely bewildered that IGN originally reviewed this game a 4 out of 10. So with that out of the way, it's time to beat the mind game. Let's find out what on Earth, or in this case space, happened on Talos I as we shake things up like old times. Welcome to Too Long Didn't Play. Now before we start, I'm a small YouTuber who struggles at the best of times, so it pains me to say this, but if you've not played Prey, turn this video off now and go play it. We cover the whole story here and some side content, and a lot of that is best experienced without knowing what's going to happen. You have to trust me on this, everyone deserves to experience this game going in blind. And now that I'm done sabotaging my channel, let's get to it. We start off by selecting the male version of our protagonist, Morgan Yu. Sorry, who? You. Who, me? No, Morgan Yu. Yeah, but what's his surname? Yu. No, his. And once we're done with that poorly thought out Abbott and Costello bit, we wake up in our apartment on March 15th, 2033. Our alarm clock seems awful familiar to any regular viewers on the channel. If you didn't pick up on it, the backing track to all my Too Long Didn't Play videos so far is from the Prey OST, and it's a song called Mind Games, which is composed by the game's director Rafael Colantonio and Matt Pearsall. Colantonio actually gave me permission to use the song for free and encouraged it when I reached out to him before I started making YouTube videos a couple months ago. So let's just add a first number to our counter now. But that does mean if I do get copyrighted, it's Bethesda's doing. Now getting back to the recap, there's no better way to start the day than with a call from our brother Alex, who tells us he's in a helicopter to pick us up and that we're going to be undergoing a few tests for the day, so he tells us to get dressed and ready. Before we do that, it's such a nice day outside, so we go to step out onto our balcony, but we realise the door's locked. Ah well. We do a bit of light morning reading on how to apply this thing called a neuromod. Oh, we have to stick it in our eye? Let's hope we don't come across any of them. We finally get dressed in our iconic TranStar uniform before leaving our apartment. Before we head to the helicopter on the roof, we explore the hallway a bit and go spend time with our pet fish. Once we're done there, we head down the hall speaking to this maintenance worker on the way and head into the elevator, but not before randomly learning how to slide. Morgan arrives and walks out the elevator and notices numerous scuff marks on the floor. Man, it's hard to get a good cleaner nowadays, before we head outside towards the helicopter. We jump inside and go for a ride in a brilliant opening which shows us just how beautiful the city is. It's just a pity someone put these damn massive letters everywhere, which I can't imagine will be too good for bridge traffic. After a short ride, we arrive at the TranStar testing facility where we're reminded of what game we're playing. Now for a bit of background, TranStar is a company we work at and it was founded by our father, William Yu. We head inside and we're greeted by this robot who we promptly ignore and then read this quote from our father on the wall. We go to walk in the elevator when we see there's a pandemic of bad cleaners around this city, as there's scuff marks on the floor here too. After we're done critiquing their hard work, we head down the elevator and go meet Alex. Once we arrive, we walk past even more scuff marks and go speak to our brother Alex. He tells us we're about to be subjected to some strange tests by Dr. Bellamy, but to just do what comes naturally to us, and if all goes well, we'll be in space orbit next week. Morgan heads through to the testing chamber where we meet Dr. Bellamy, who's standing behind this piece of glass. Our first test is to remove some boxes from a red circle, which we believe we ace. However, this judgmental arsehole Dr. Bellamy doesn't instill too much confidence in us.
You're absolutely fine. Let's move on to room B then.
We're then sent to the next testing room where we get asked to find a hiding place in a room with only one chair in it. Now I feel like we're kind of set up to fail on this one, but we do our best, and of course, the scientists talk shit about how we did such a bad job.
Is he? He's hiding behind the chair.
Any synaptic register? At all? No?
Now, I don't even know what they want me to do here. It's not like I could have done anything else, like I could turn into the chair or something stupid like that. We spit the dummy because we failed that one too, and we try to throw the chair through the glass before we go into the next testing room. Our next test is to press this button on the other side of the room, which again, we do our best at, but we disappoint everyone. So now we're very demoralized, so we go to the last testing room, where we have to answer a questionnaire on this computer and select the answers which show our inherent bias against overweight people. After completing that, Dr. Bellamy continues to explain some instructions to us when his coffee addiction gets the better of him and strangles him to near death. Because everything's turned to shit, we get gassed and then pass out on the floor, thus ending Prey. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? No, we hear Alex speaking to someone, and he tells them he's on the way when all of a sudden it's Groundhog Day. We're back to the beginning again when we wake up in our apartment, but things feel different this time. It's probably because the game is now playing a foreboding music score as we walk around the apartment. We check our emails and see these pretty aggressive emails from someone named January, so we get dressed and head outside again. This time the hallway looks a lot more scary than before as the maintenance worker is now dead. As all good protagonists do, we rob her corpse and we pick up a trusty wrench. We then get a call from January who tells us what happened yesterday was real and that we need to escape our apartment. And if you're still watching the video, now is your last chance to click off before the spoilers begin and all the surprises are ruined. As our balcony door is still locked, we decide to smash our way out of the apartment with a wrench. This triggers the grand reveal that was only spoiled by all the pre-game marketing that our apartment window was in fact a two-way mirror and someone's been watching us. Come on now, how do you give this a 4 out of 10? Now that revelation is way too shocking for me, so I head outside to seek comfort from our pet fish, where for some reason I try to smash him and it turns out he was just part of another two-way mirror. We exit through our newly created fish hole and walk around to see our apartment is set in a simulation lab, like some sick twisted version of the Truman Show, which I guess is just a Truman Show. And then we go read a note on the desk which confirms someone's been tracking our movements. Investigating a nearby computer reveals the phone call we received from Alex at the start of the day was merely a recorded message, and then we continue to explore the simulation lab. Morgan continues to explore and we find this weird looking chair and whiteboard. Now note that rubbed out code on the bottom of the whiteboard by the way, because it's going to be important to our counter later. We then search around and find Marco Simmons' poorly hidden password to hack into his computer, and we find out that Dr. Bellamy somehow survived his coffee attack from earlier. Yeah, I don't know about that, he looked pretty dead to me. Because this is an immersive sim, we decide to parkour our way up this light and head to the testing room we started the game at. Things look a little bit weird this time because now there's 2 chairs in the testing room. Ah, what the fuck was that? We see one of the aliens and beat it to death with a wrench, and then January calls us and tells us that it's called a mimic, which is a type of Typhon alien species, which is the common enemy of this game. He gives us a warning that they can turn into any inanimate object, so to be careful. And now this is really bad news for Morgan, but really great for us the player, as it means any object in any room can turn into a mimic at any moment. Now that we're terrified as shit, we look for an escape and stumble across a helicopter we rode in before and figure out even that was a simulation. Oh man, that means the city with the bridge letters wasn't real either. We continue looking for an escape and fiddle with his computer, which reveals to us that rather than moving around different buildings in the opening, the rooms were merely changing like a set. This is the explanation for all the scuff marks before that I was pointing out, and not that there's a pandemic of poor cleaners around the city. Morgan finally finds an exit, and in case I don't see you, good morning, good evening, and good holy shit, that guy's getting killed by a mimic. This guy's death interrupting my Truman Show reference helps us learn that once a mimic kills someone, it multiplies as we see it split into 4 and scuttle off like an absolute sicko. Our way forward opens and January tells us he'll help us survive, but I don't know man, I kinda just want to go back to the apartment living in blissful ignorance. To continue forward, we have to climb through this vent as an alternative to finding a keycard to get through the main door, when this mimic pops up out of nowhere which leads us to a jump scare. Ultimately, I win in the end as we beat it to death with a wrench. We get through this vent and I see this larger form of Typhon which I irresponsibly provide access to us. Luckily it's a coward and it runs away. January then calls us and tells us that that type of Typhon is called a Phantom. Thanks January. We move forward and we find this gun on the floor which is called the Jellyfoam Lattice Organism Obstructor. The Jellyfoam Lattice Organism, actually fuck that. The glue gun earns another point to our counter as it not only acts offensively against Typhon, freezing them in place, but can also be shot on any surface throughout the game and used to make makeshift platforms to reach locations you otherwise wouldn't be able to reach at certain points. As an example of that, we immediately turn around and go to this grab shaft, which we don't have the skills to repair just yet, and we use the glue gun to climb up it. This provides us a great view of all the jump scares we're going to encounter later, but also early access to this Disruptor stun gun. Now we're already 2 steps ahead of the game, we head back down to the main lobby and we get attacked by this mimic. We show off our poor aim for a bit before putting it down. While this happens, January calls us and tells us there's a neuromod model in the lobby he has swapped for a real one, which should help us survive. If you remember the book we read at the start of the game, they're the things that we have to stick in our eye, so I'd rather not. We explore around a bit and get attacked by another mimic. This caused me to say fuck this to my previous objections, so we go straight to the neuromod January left us and stick these 2 sharp needles right into our eye. This grants us access to the game's skill tree, in which we use our first mod to upgrade our hacking ability. This allows us to get into the security booth we weren't able to access before, which provides us with a lot of loot and goodies. The neuromod skill tree earns this game another point to our counter, as it opens up different ways to access different areas of the game and abilities to use. For example, hacking the terminal wasn't the only way to get into that security booth, but more on that later. With that, we head into the main lobby area of the station and we try to find January. He tells us to prepare for our first real view of the world as we see that we're actually on a space station called Talos I. Now, I don't know if this was supposed to be a massive reveal or anything, but it's always fallen just a touch short to me, and I think that might be because all the marketing already revealed this for us, but I guess it's cool nonetheless. As we make our way down the lobby stairs, we see part of the station explode. I guess it's hard to keep up good maintenance when a bunch of aliens break out on your station. January calls us and tells us we have to make our way to our office, where there's a video we need to see, as is sure we have a lot of questions. Now, I personally don't. My one and only question is, how the fuck do I get off this alien-infested station? Whilst proceeding with the story is tempting, and I told myself I'd strictly stick to the main story for this playthrough, every time I play this game without fail, I can't help but explore the lobby for a little bit. And as this is a full game recap and not just a story recap, I'm going to take you along for the ride with me. We first head into the TranStar exhibit museum and sneak this neuromod around a patrolling Phantom. Now, I'm no good at stealth, so he immediately sees me. It's lucky I have my trusted glue gun, so I freeze him and then I beat him to death. Holy shit, he broke out. A fight ensues and we eventually wrench him to death. Because we're feeling a bit weak now, we upgrade our glue gun and turn ourselves into a gym junkie steroid user by putting a point in the leverage ability. This allows us to lift up level 1 items and is an absolute waste, as I'm pretty sure this skill becomes obsolete later in the game. Now we've got the power of steroids, we feel a bit curious, so we head back into the exhibit room and we take a bit of a lesson in TranStar rewritten history, where we have a bit of Talos I lore explained to us. We learn that TranStar purchased Talos I in 2025, which was previously owned by the US and the Soviets. This has something to do with JFK surviving his assassination, which gave him the bright idea to study an alien species in space. Putting my facetiousness aside though for a second, the lore actually is pretty good in this game, but because this is a not so serious recap, we're going to skip that and we'll just stick to what TranStar tell us. In 2030, Talos I became operational with employees and the first neuromod was released. Now that seems non-shady to me, so let's keep going. We continue on to our office peacefully. Oh my god, there's 5 of them, Jesus Christ! Morgan eventually cleans up the mimics attacking him, and I clean up the shit in my pants from that attack, so now we're ready to continue exploring. We immersive sim our way into this locked psychotronics office by smashing some glass and reaching through the window to unlock the door, and find out that there's absolutely nothing useful inside. We head back to the lobby and look at this elevator in awe before continuing our exploration a little bit. Our health is looking a little bit low now, and we're lucky to find this health kit in this office. Jesus Christ, I don't want to play anymore. We wrench those mimics to death and head towards our office when we get distracted by this item on the front counter. Fucking hell, can they stop doing that? We get saved by this turret and collect a keycard to the trauma center on the front desk. On our way upstairs to our office, we come across the trauma center and use the keycard to enter. We sneak around and see a couple of phantoms inside. We do our best to throw explosive tanks at them, which kills them, and it only severely injures us. Lucky we're in the trauma center. We explore a bit more and we find a neuromod and upgrade our abilities. Now from this point on, we're not going to talk about every neuromod upgrade I make, or only point out the ones that are relevant to the story. We continue through the trauma center and we find this quarantine room at the back, where we find this
Atlanta Falcons
patient who's locked up in a small room alone. We find the code to the quarantine room in a nearby office, so we return, and in a similar fashion to the way we treated people through
Atlanta Falcons.
I unlock the door with the code, shoot him in the back with a stun gun while he's not looking, and then leave him to die. I don't know if you noticed in that room back there, but there were some numbers written on the wall, which is a code to another optional unlockable. This game is filled with lots of these, and it doesn't hold your hand on how to find them, so let's just add another point to the counter. We finally start heading to our office to progress the story when we get sidetracked by Dr. Bellamy's terminal. We see an interesting email sent to him by ourselves, which seems to suggest that we're aware of the simulation Groundhog Day testing and that it was our idea. Because we're dicking around too much, January loses patience and he calls us telling us the code to our locked office, which I find is pretty funny because it's literally right there on the computer next to the office door. So we use the code and we enter the office. January tells us that the video we need to see is on our workstation, but first I want to teach you how to use the fabricator. Any items you pick up in this game get turned into different types of materials by this machine. These materials are then used to craft different items, which are plans you can find around the station. The items you can craft range from weapons, ammo, weapon upgrade kits, and then neuromods later on. It's pretty cool. Morgan finally stops procrastinating and we head to the terminal where we activate the video. Behind us, this projection loads up on what is called Looking Glass technology, which is an in-game technology and display system which allows life-size recordings and simulations, which is what was used in the simulation lab at the start of the game. The name Looking Glass is also a direct reference to Looking Glass Studio, a game development company best known for developing the spiritual predecessor to this game, System Shock. We play the video and we see this handsome looking fella trying to talk to us. The video is of ourselves, so I like to call Morgan me. He tells us we can trust January, who is an operator and is just a backup of us. We explain to ourselves that we've been using ourselves as a guinea pig to test out Typhon neuromods, and once they get removed, our memory also gets reset to the moment that the neuromod was installed. It gets explained to us that there was a process which would catch someone up to speed on their memory loss, however Alex removed this process from us and now we need to figure out why. We get left on this cliffhanger as the video breaks down. It's been intercepted by Alex, who tells us that he thought he deleted all of the videos we were just watching. He tells us he doesn't want us to watch the end of the video until he has a chance to explain himself in person. Now I don't know man, that sounds like the words of a guilty person to me. January contacts us and tells us that we might be able to fix the looking glass connection by exploring Dr. Calvino's office in the hardware labs. Dr. Calvino is the inventor of the technology, so we set out to go do that. But first, we commit property damage with this speaker. On the way to the hardware labs, we stop by this teleconferencing room. Weirdly, this game decides to give us an oddly timed tutorial on combat, but we ignore that and we head inside to pick up this pistol on the floor. And that explains the tutorial. We kill the mimics and we pick up the silenced pistol as we continue to expand our arsenal. We continue on our journey and head into the sales division where we use our new weapon on this Phantom. We also upgrade our arsenal further by finding this toy crossbow, which is terrible for damage but great for pressing buttons which are out of reach.
Now dig on this.
Morgan walks across this chandelier and heads to the staff lounge, where for inanimate objects everything seems to be moving a little bit too much. And now we've played this game for long enough, we snipe this mimic and then pick out another one. Holy shit, it's coming at me. We search around the lounge for a bit before heading to the IT department where we hack our way in. We're immediately swarmed by these IT workers, so we quickly put them down. After wasting our ammo and ensuring they're dead, we search their remains and find out they were actually Typhon Phantoms. Now I didn't really know how to write that joke in a way which was reminiscent of the Simpsons episode when Homer kills Flanders in that treehouse of horror and then later finds out he was a zombie, but that's what I was getting at.
Dad, you killed the zombie Flanders.
You was a zombie?
Looting their corpses lets us unlock a null wave grenade, which deactivates Typhon powers. It's one of those classic video game throwables that you'll forget you ever have and never use. We continue exploring, and because I'm the only person who's ever actually wanted to enter a HR office, I use this canister and my steroid strength to clear the blockage which unblocks the door. This makes me feel like an immersive sim genius. As with real life, the HR office is filled with nothing but darkness, so we continue our quest and head to the hardware labs. The door's being blocked by some glue, so we clear that out the way and enter. This robot scares the shit out of us, so we destroy it. After a hard day of robot murder, Morgan builds up a sweat. Have you ever built up a sweat? Be like Morgan, where he refreshes his electrolytes with some cold mountain green tea. Cold mountain green tea, is it in you? Whilst exploring a bit more, we use our glue cannon and make this makeshift ladder and we head to Dr. Jorgen Thorstein's office. For having that confusing name, we kill the Phantom version of the Doctor and we get a bit of lore from his whiteboard and find out that he created the glue cannon. We snoop around his office a little bit more and we use the power of science and this periodic table to crack into his safe, which nets us our first recycler charge. Now these things absolutely slap and can recycle all loose items which are in the environment down to their material form. These are also great for clearing out blockages and destroying enemies too. We leave his office and what the fuck is still alive? We quickly put an end to that by caving his skull in and looting his corpse. January calls us after murdering him and tells us the doctor admired us. Way to take the fun out of murder, January. We continue searching around the lab and find this glue snowman called Gluey McGlueface. We then turn him into Wrenchy McWrenchface before heading to Calvino's lab. The lab door is locked, so January calls us and gives us the idea that the key to the office is probably on Calvino's body. Before we go and find him though, we deviate from the path and put out this fire with our glue gun and find the keycard to the ballistics lab on this dead body. We enter the ballistics lab and see a bunch of mimics sealed in this sphere. We drop a recycler grenade in the sphere which angers the mimics, but despite all their rage, they're still just a rat in a cage and they get killed, being turned into sweet exotic material for our crafting needs. We leave the lab and head back to the security station, which is located within the hardware labs, and use a terminal to track Dr. Calvino's body. It turns out this dickhead has been sucked into space, so we need to head outside of the station to go get him. January calls us and tells us that we're able to access the Talos I exterior through an airlock in the machine shop. But before we do that, we need to find and craft an RTAX propulsion system which will help us navigate outside. Now for the sake of brevity and because I can't be fucked saying that anymore, I'm going to just call it a jetpack. We head to the machine shop and things turn sour real quickly when we get attacked by this robot and then this mimic who seem to make a great team. Luckily for us, we manage to defeat the dynamic duo. Whilst exploring the machine shop, we use this nifty trick with the recycler charge to clear this blockage, which nets us the fabrication plan for weapon upgrade kits as well as his Typhon lure. Morgan then uses his glue cannon to get up on this platform where he finds a plan for the jetpack, which we craft, and as per our usual Prey playthrough protocol, we realise just how underwhelming it is for travelling inside. To use it as intended, we head to the airlock and travel outside of the station, which gives us our first look at the Talos I exterior. Now, if you watch my best or worst game ever series, here's a spoiler for the Prey video coming out in a week's time. Whilst the idea of travelling the exterior of Talos I is cool, I think it just feels a bit too clunky, so I always end up dreading this portion of the game. We float around a bit and see this large TranStar billboard outside, so we go to check it out. We see this button located on the back of the billboard, so we decide to click it. This changes the TranStar logo which was on the board to a message that reads, "Escape pods are fake." As far as I know, nothing in the game points you to doing this and has some serious implications for a section later in the game. So for that, we're going to add another number to our counter. We finally float towards Dr. Calvino's body and upgrade our repair skill before taking his keycard. Now we're master repairers, we fix this breach door failsafe too, which gives us access to the Beams and Waves lab, and I wonder what's in there. Our curiosity is too much, so Morgan floats back inside and we immediately go to check it out. On the way to the lab, we get spooked by the music, so we accidentally glue this friendly medical bot before gluing the actual phantom enemy and clobbering him over this barrier. After that mishap, we run off in embarrassment to the Beams and Waves lab and we go inside. Whilst investigating the lab, we see this phantom is locked up in this experimental chamber. We activate the experiment and see it get absolutely eviscerated by this thing called the Q-beam. We head inside to collect it, and what we receive is one of the most underwhelming guns in the game, at least until you upgrade it. Now look at this, I know it looks like a quick kill, but when there's phantoms and later enemies shooting shit at you with their telekinesis powers, this feels slow as shit. Now that we've got the Q-beam though, we head into Dr. Calvino's workshop. Whilst we're in there, we fix the looking glass tech, and January tells us we should head back to our office to watch the rest of the video. In a blink and you'll miss it secret, we also play one of Calvino's recordings. If you watch it through a specific display, you'll see him use his thermos to access a hidden secret. Because we're an astute gamer and we didn't find this out by googling it, we find his thermos in the room and we use it to access a hidden compartment. Now don't tell me this isn't the best game of all time. Now we've got what we need, we sprint back to our office straight past this Typhon who's trying to kill us. Once we arrive at our office, we're attacked by this new form of mimic who nearly kills us because the turret outside didn't do his job. Where were you on that one, dipshit? We finally get to watch the end of the video, which I'm sure we regret, because Morgan tells us that we have to destroy Talos I with ourselves included. He mentions there's a Typhon a part of us now, even if one cell gets back to Earth it would be catastrophic. We learn that January can help us with the self-destruction mechanism, but to expect Alex to try and stop us in the process. Following this, January spawns out our operator machine and we finally get to meet him, I guess us. He informs us that we programmed him to get us to this point, and now he can tell us our next step. January explains that to destroy Talos I we need 2 arming keys, one which Alex has and the other which we had but Alex has since destroyed. All hope is not lost yet though, as supposedly there's a fabrication plan to our key that's been kept in deep storage, so we plan to go get it. After we sort that out, we'll figure out how to get Alex's key, but first things first. January gives us a key to the main lift, which will take us to deep storage through the Arboretum. We head to the lift and try to sneak past this ethereal phantom, which immediately turns around, clones itself, then beats the shit out of us. Never mind though, we have the shit Q-beam to take care of this. Now that we've survived this, it's as easy as going up this lift to our... and the lift's broken. For fuck's sake. January can't diagnose what's wrong with the lift, so he tells us the only way up is to take a detour through Psychotronics. This is the area of Talos I where the Typhon initially broke containment. We also hear a broadcast from another survivor called Sarah Elazar. I remember the first time I played this game, just hearing another voice was such a sigh of relief, which I give kudos for the standout job the developers did in this game, making you feel so isolated. Before we head to Psychotronics, I want to show you how cool the hunting bow can be. See this locked door? If you shoot the buttons, you can open and close them. Once Morgan's done dicking around with his foam bolts, we head into Psychotronics. As we enter, an operator named December calls us and tells us there's another operator that we've programmed with its sole purpose to help us escape Talos I. He tells us Alex has a private escape pod we can use to get off the station, but we need to get the plan for it in the Neuromod division. Now we've got 2 robots talking to us, who knows who we can trust. For now though, we decide to continue on with our mission to Psychotronics and nearly get destroyed by this phantom, which gives us second thoughts. Morgan survives that attack and we power on into Psychotronics, where Alex calls us and warns us just how dangerous this area is. Unfortunately, this is the only thing in the game January and Alex agree on, as January calls us a short time after and reiterates the dangers of the section.
Get through this place fast as possible.
Thanks for the pep talk, guys. They both warn us that we have to access a utility tunnel called the Guts, which should take us to the top of the station. As we explore the area, we see the security station, which unfortunately we can't access. We can't access until we use the bolt caster. I told you it was useful. This provides us access to a couple of turrets we can use, which we bring with us. I shit you not, in the notes I had for this script, all it says here is, helps me destroy Crispin Glover from Back to the Future. Now I'm just going to let the gameplay play over the top of this, and I can assume I wanted myself to write a clever Back to the Future reference here. After watching the footage back myself, great Scott, that's lazy writing by me. I can only imagine I saw that the Phantom's first name was Crispin, and I thought that'd be a good reference. We continue forward towards the Guts, and while we can kill Marty McFly's dad, we can't proceed forward as we need an item called the Psychoscope, which will help us proceed through these doors. We explore a bit and jump down this dark hole in the floor where we seem to be trapped by this wall of goo. How many times are they gonna do that? We seek retribution for the scare they gave me, and then we find the psychoscope. If you've ever played Bioshock, picture this thing to be like the camera in that game. But if you haven't played Bioshock, for the one or two of you out there, this psychoscope lets us scan enemies and learn all about their weaknesses. Now with the psychoscope comes chipsets. These are mostly passive abilities you can find around the station and then install them into the psychoscope. And we find one immediately which lets us detect where mimics are, even when they're hiding. Now that we have the upper hand, we're no longer going to get jump scared and we have all the power. Ah, fuck. With our psychoscope equipped, Morgan continues through to the guts when for some reason this science operator decides to jump scare us. We continue through to the atrium of this area, and then Alex contacts us. He tells us we need to scan enough Typhon where we'll be able to unlock the lab. He also tells us by scanning enough Typhon we'll learn their abilities which we can unlock with neuromods. We get a bit of a lore dump here, and we find out that we actually invented the psychoscope, and learning about the Typhon and implementing their powers within ourselves was our life's work. We scan a few phantoms who are stuck in these containers, which allows Morgan to fully level up. Alex contacts us and tells us we can now install Typhon abilities. He also sends us a code to a safe nearby which has neuromods in it, which I can imagine the developers put in the game in case an impatient player wanted to use these abilities straight away. Because we're one of those players, we head straight into Dr. Kelstrip's office where the safe is located and we collect the neuromods. We also collect a fabrication plan which helps us create neuromods. Before we do anything stupid though, January calls us and gives us a warning about playing with Typhon powers.
For one thing, the station's defensive turrets will identify you as an alien threat. There might be worse consequences I can't yet see. I don't want you to lose yourself.
While we're mulling that decision over, we use a keycard we found to head into the secret looking glass room in Dr. Kelstrip's office. We listen to a voice recording we found where it tells us we need to calibrate his looking glass display. We follow the rules and this is actually very easy. Watch how good I was at this. Yeah, it made me shit myself too. We deservedly beat that bastard to death with our wrench in one of the more satisfying kills, and that jump scare officially pushes Morgan and I over the line because now we're craving power so that never happens again, so we immediately install a Typhon neuromod called Kinetic Blast. Installing this knocks us out and we start having these weird visions of flashing lights which don't make much sense right now. We come to and Alex calls us. He reminds Morgan that the first time he used Typhon neuromods it gave him telekinetic powers, and one day he'll lift up all of humanity. Now I don't know if he meant literally or metaphorically. Like Alex, we're also somewhat mad with power now, so we use our fabrication plan to craft 3 more neuromods. With this, we learn the Mimic ability, which is one we've all been waiting for. With this newfound power, and remember, it's designed to lift up humanity, we can now turn ourselves into a coffee mug and roll around on the floor. Look at me, Morty! I turned myself into a coffee mug! I'm Coffee Mug you! Outdated reference aside, after dicking around for a little bit, we head to the second floor of this place and we come across this room which is full of items, and on each of them is a sticky note that reads not a mimic. This room really would have been better if they put it before we got that psychoscope chipset which allowed us to see mimics. That being said, it still doesn't stop me getting killed by this mimic as I go mad with power trying to learn all the Typhon abilities. We finally respawn and give this phantom a taste of his own medicine before heading into the behavioural biometrics room. It's here we first find this golden weave where Alex calls us. And you know when you try to leave a party early and your mates say, "Ah, the old you wouldn't do that"? Well basically Alex gives us that guilt trip where he says he misses the old Morgan who wasn't trying to destroy his space station and kill himself in the process.
I wish you were with me, Morgan. Not the way you are now. The way you used to be. I know we could tackle this together. Like old times.
That guilt trip is enough to make us move forward and closer to the guards. Once we enter we see a Typhon called a Weaver which is creating the golden coral. We're still yet to find out what that is yet, but Alex calls us with yet another guilt trip, where he tells us he misses a version of Morgan before they started experimenting on him and he drifted away. Alex tells us he wants to continue studying the golden coral, but he needs more time. We move forward into this live examination room, where we see a dead body lying in this containment box. Doing a bit of digging around the room, we find out a scientist named Anna Galagos began having a crisis of conscience over the experiments being performed on the volunteer test subjects, and she had some evidence she wanted to smuggle back to Earth of this. I'm quite curious of what this experiment is, so we use a workstation to activate it. The experiment involves letting the Weaver access a containment box where it transforms the test subject into a phantom, which immediately kills us. We reload and try again and put down the phantom once and for all. Alex calls us and decides to give us another lore dump, informing Morgan that through experimentation they found that Typhon don't have mirror neurons, meaning they can't empathise with other living creatures. Now that we've learned that Typhon share similarities with my ex-wife, we make our way backwards to the material extraction section and see this locked armory. We use our new mimic abilities to turn into this small item that I think is a pen holder to access a locked room. This upgrades our armory to its full potential as we unlock this boomstick. Groovy. We make our way back out by mimicking this random item that I'm not even going to guess what it is, and we continue on to the material extraction area where we find this guy who's alive and stuck in containment. Through conversation, we find out this guy's name is Aaron Ingram. He tells us he was going to let us into the armory, but because we've already done that, he doesn't have much bargaining power. He asks us to set him free, but first we look at his record, and we see he's a convicted criminal who's been convicted of human trafficking, kidnapping, and a multitude of serious offences. We also decide to read this note on how we can extract exotic material, which is used to craft neuromods. The Too Long Didn't Play version of that is that you let mimics kill a test subject and extract it from him. Now I'm going to add a point to the counter, as this is the moment that made me fall in love with this game the first time I played. The moral choices that are littered throughout the game and the freedom to do as you want is rarely matched in games these days. Unfortunately for Aaron though, at this point of the playthrough I'm still mad with power, and we activate the extraction procedure. In a pretty brutal scene, we see Aaron cower and beg for us not to let the mimics into his container. As our Morgan's still a bit of a sicko, we continue the extraction and let the mimic in, which kills him and then multiplies into 4. We then lure them into this extraction container and finish the procedure turning them into exotic material. January calls us and asks us if it was worth it, and I say this exotic material suggests yes. Now if you haven't been paying attention, this moment confirms to us that neuromods are made from exotic materials within Typhon, in this case mimics, and mimics multiply by killing and consuming humans' biomass. Turns out TranStar were using convicts to run these experiments, basically sending them to their death. Pretty heavy stuff. Yep. Let that sink in while I fight this phantom. Anyway, we head to the guts and get this call from January.
They're easy to fabricate. Best part is the built-in psychoscope tech. They can discriminate between alien and human targets. Shouldn't be a problem for you, since you're not an alien.
Wait, what the fuck was that? Why did he say it like that? Are we an alien? Let's put that existential crisis aside for now and head into the guts. Once we arrive, we get contacted by December again. As he's talking to us, he reminds us that we can still escape Talos I when we hear January talking and enter the room he's in and murders December. Now who's the murderer, January?
Told you not to do it! Oh, shit!
Oh, still me? January tells us December was defective and we can only trust him while everyone else is working against us. And as that paranoia sets in, we finally reach the guts. We start to fly through the guts, and I'll note now that this is probably my least favourite part of the game. Now you guys know I'm already biased against all the zero gravity sections of this game, but these ones have these fucking crystal things that just chase you around and explode on you on impact. We continue on and reach this locked door which halts our progression. Luckily we have our glue gun handy, and we use it to stop this huge fan of the channel which allows us to move forward. As Morgan approaches the Arboretum, we're stopped by another locked door, so we have to head into the magnetosphere to gain access. Fortunately for us, we go back to normal gravity for a bit. Once we're in there, we spend way too long trying to get into this toilet as a toilet paper roll. Before giving up and moving forward with the quest. With that, we collect the maintenance tunnel keycard from this dead guy and return to the guts. After returning to the guts, we get through this locked door and we have another vision. These are getting a bit clearer now, and it seems to be a man standing over us with some operator robots. There's also a voice in there that tells us we're not who they say we are. Spooky indeed. We continue floating through the guts and the golden weave, which January finally gives us a name that we can refer to it by, and he says it's Coral. We continue to the end of this section, reaching the door to the Arboretum. Before we enter though, we hear another broadcast from Elazar, who tells us she's holed up in the cargo bay with a bunch of survivors. Once we arrive in the Arboretum, January calls us and tells us he's hidden a fabrication plan to our arming key in deep storage, so we head there. Before we move forward though, we try to break the game by crafting unlimited neuromods. The developers obviously accounted for this, and our neuromod license gets revoked. And Alex calls us to let us know we have to renew this license in the neuromod division. We continue on towards deep storage when we peek through this door and see this huge Typhon called a Nightmare, which January tells us to stay away from. This leads me to believe that we're not going to be able to avoid it forever. That's a problem for future Morgan though, so we head up to the Arboretum with our first task, which is to fix the lift to the main lobby. We go straight to the problem, expecting to see a bunch of loose wires or something, and are greeted with this flying fucking thing called a technopath. As with all problems you'll face in life, our solution is to kill it and the lift is fixed. We also find the body of Hendrik de Vries. We loot his body and find his office keycard, which we were previously unable to enter in the trauma center. Because we have a job to do though, we head back to the Arboretum and towards deep storage, where we come across this guy who's trapped in a greenhouse. It's all good though, he's safe, his cries for help are nullified by this huge Typhon called a telepath. We find this note that is slid under the front door, which lets us know there's no roof on the greenhouse. Once again, we turn to the almighty glue gun and use it to scale the greenhouse and get to the top. Now I'm going to edit out the amount of times I fell in here and died. Let's just jump to when I kill the telepath and save this woman named Rani. She's grateful for our help, so she gives us the code to a storage room that contains some turrets. This reward kinda sucks because we don't really need the turrets. What doesn't suck though is finishing this quest comes with a bit of a lore dump. We learn that this isn't the first time a Typhon has broken containment, and Morgan actually debated stopping the experiments while Alex wanted to keep going. With Rani safe, we continue towards deep storage, where we find the door is locked, and it can only be unlocked by voice activation by TranStar employee Danielle Show. A transcribe we find near the door clues us in that if we have enough voice transcriptions of Danielle Show, we can replicate her voice. Under the assumption that Danielle's dead, January actually agrees with this, and we formulate a plan to head into her room in crew quarters to access her voice transcriptions. Morgan heads straight down to crew quarters where we see a bunch of mind-controlled employees. With them, we hear this non-mind controlled chef, who's equally as crazy, calling out to us over the radio. He tells us to go meet him in the kitchen. Before heading towards the crazy guy asking us to come see him, we suss out this terminal and download a transcribe which progresses a Dr. Gallagher's quest from before. It turns out she was working with a Quentin Purvis, who hid something in a cargo box in the cargo bay. We also hear him talking to a chef named Will Mitchell. We do a bit of searching around the place and end up in this bathroom where funny things are happening and doors are opening and closing automatically with the taps turning on and off. Because the Ghostbusters are unavailable, Morgan takes matters into his own hands and he kills this Typhon called a Poltergeist for dicking around with him. During our time exploring, we found a code to the executive suite, so we use that to activate a grav shaft and head upstairs. We find our room and go inside, which looks exactly like the apartment at the start of the game during the simulation. I feel like that attention to detail was quite kind of them. After reading some emails, we head back out and try to break into Alex's room, which we can't enter, so we go into this bedroom instead. We see this guest trying to have a nice day, but unfortunately for him, Morgan called shotgun for this room. Now all that phantom killings made us work up an appetite, so we head to the kitchen to meet up with the chef. He introduces himself as Chef Will Mitchell, but he seems a bit off and doesn't sound or look anything like the Will Mitchell we heard earlier on the transcribe. I don't know about you, but I've never been isolated on a space station being overrun by aliens, so who am I to judge? He gives us the key to his room and he tells us if we go retrieve an award, he'll let us in. We make our way to his room and pick up a transcribe which gives us a bit of Danielle's voice as she talks to Chef Will Mitchell. It also guarantees for us that the chef we just met probably isn't Will Mitchell. Even though we're suspicious, we still grab the award for him and bring it back. Lucky not Will Mitchell was a man of his word and he lets us into the safety of his kitchen. As luck would have it, this kind and honest man has been left without water and he asks us to fix his water regulator for him. To escape the fallout of a quest to get a water chip, rather than head to the greenhouse to get one, we use our repair skill to repair the system. Will Mitchell, once again a man of his word, says he'll open up the freezer for us where he keeps all his good stuff. Because he's proved trustworthy enough, we walk in to collect our reward when all of a sudden we're locked in and begin freezing to death. By the time we come to, Will Mitchell calls us and he tells us that he doesn't like you. Not you, Morgan you. He threatens to feed us to the Typhon like we once did to him, as it turns out that he wasn't Will Mitchell at all, but in fact he was a prisoner on board who since escaped his containment. We search around the freezer for a bit and we find the real Will Mitchell's tracking bracelet in a pool of blood. We also search a dead body of an Abigail Foy who's also in the freezer. We find a transcribe on her and hear a conversation she had with Danielle Show. Danielle tells Abigail to head to the fitness center and knock on the window by the pool. With that tidbit, we need to figure out a way out of the freezer. So we use the classic move of turning yourself into a pizza box to jump out, and then we make our way back into the kitchen. Lucky for him, that arsehole chef is gone, and because we're the smartest player in the world, we've outsmarted him, because he's such an idiot, and I can't believe he thought he was going to kill us that easily. We leave the kitchen with our heads held high and we die? After respawning, we sneak up to the killer doll, and we see that it isn't sentient. There's actually been a recycler charge placed on the switch. As annoying as this is, you gotta respect it, and you actually start finding recycler charges placed throughout the station from this point onwards, which got me more times than I care to mention. So well played, chef, well played. Now the recycler is deactivated, we leave the kitchen and get a quick call from the chef, which now happens periodically throughout the game. We finally decide to start progressing the quest, and we go to Danielle's cabin where this phantom is waiting for us. We finally collected the last of the transcribes, and January also calls us to tell us that there's more coral forming around the station. Before moving out of this area though, we have a violent rave. Or just a regular rave, depending where you go, with a couple of Typhons. We also notice on our heads up display that turrets are now hostile to us because we've installed too many Typhon abilities. At this stage, we're pretty curious about Danielle's instructions to her partner Abigail to meet her at the fitness center, so we search around a bit and find the fitness center code in this bathroom. We enter the fitness center and act as Fireman Sam again before acting as an exterminator and taking out his telepath and his minions. I didn't really know how to hide this gameplay, so you can watch above as I just poke in and out of cover cheesing this enemy. Now that he's dead though, Morgan Yu, the king of the cowards, finally comes out of cover and knocks on the window not knowing what to expect. I don't know how long Danielle's been waiting there for, but she floats into frame and sounds like she's really out of breath. She explains to us that someone broke out of Psychotronics and is pretending to be the chef and that they killed Abby. Now this information would have been good to have yesterday! She also asks us to kill him if we get the chance, which we'll gladly do. She heads off saying goodbye to Morgan, sealing her fate that she's going to soon die outside the station as she runs out of oxygen. With everything now tied up in crew quarters, we head back to the Arboretum, which we can see visually has more coral in it, and we head through to deep storage where we unlock the door with Danielle's voice. As soon as we get through, Alex gives us a call and locks us in deep storage. He says he'll let us out later to meet him in his office, but for now it's what's best for us. And I hate to say it, but I actually agree with him if there's no crazy chef in here. It's as if the game can hear me though, as we immediately get a call from the crazy chef and then walk into this room with a technopath, which we kill and then head towards Central Repository. Prior to reaching there though, we quickly search Danielle Show's office and kill Johnny Storm before finding a security key. This inadvertently helps us a bit later when we arrive at Central Repository door and use the key to access the security office, where we grant ourselves access using this terminal. This leads to a very minor mimic attack, and once that's sorted we head into deep storage, which unfortunately for us is a zero gravity area. Now every time I enter these areas I try speedrunning them by beelining to the objective. This turns me into a bird as I fail to see this massive window and fly headfirst into it, critically injuring Morgan. Now I wouldn't lie to my viewers, so just so you know, I died a shit ton of times in here trying to ignore every enemy in this section and trying to rush to the data drive to mount it to a computer. Let's just skip to where I grab it and successfully mount it on. If you do ever play this game though, remember, slow is fast and this is bullshit. We restore the drive, which allows us access to Danielle Show's terminal, which gives us access to our arm and key fabrication plan. With that we head back to our office, but not before taking out our anger on this phantom. Once we've made our way back to the office, we use her terminal to download the fabrication plan. Danielle's timing is near perfect as she calls us and tells us we can escape Alex's lockdown through some data vaults nearby, which will shoot us into space. While she's speaking, we craft the arming key, which completes that quest. We now just have to focus on obtaining Alex's key, but first we need to escape deep storage. We make our way back to the data vaults and follow Danielle's instructions, which as she promised, it jettisons us into space, but not before getting knocked out into a loading screen. Whilst we're unconscious, we have a few more visions which are now getting clearer. It's obvious that Alex is standing over us with a few operators, and we also see a city which appears to be covered in coral. We wake up drifting through space like George Clooney in Gravity when we get a call from Chief Alazar, who tells us we can re-enter the station where she's held up in the cargo bay. We float our way there and get another call from the crazy chef, who somehow predicts the whole plot of the third act of the game, but I'm not going to play that audio now, and because I doubt you're reading the screen, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. As we approach the cargo bay, we intercept a transmission from a Dr. Igwe. He's begging for help as he's locked in a cargo container which is floating in space and is quickly running out of oxygen. In a lucky coincidence for Igwe, as we're investigating his container and getting attacked by these crystalloids, Salazar calls us and tells us the only way to get back into the station is by docking a cargo container. We kill two birds with one stone, which isn't meant to be taken literally, and decide to dock Igwe's cargo container, which saves him and provides us entry back into Talos I. We go to enter the ship by way of the crate, and January calls us and warns us that Igwe may not approve of us destroying the ship. Look, I don't know the guy, but the fact we saved his life, I feel like he should do whatever we tell him. We enter the cargo bay, which is clearly having a power outage, and we hear a voice flagging us from a nearby catwalk. He tells us to come on up, but first we have to satiate our bloodlust and take down a couple phantoms. As with all things in high places though, we use our glue gun to make a path for us and access the safe room. We head inside and we speak with Dr. Igwe, who gives us a neuromod as a reward for saving his life. That shit reward makes me think I should have killed him like the prisoner. I mean, you're welcome, Doctor. In a nice touch too, we also see Rani, the woman we saved from the greenhouse earlier, who doesn't reward us for anything. Because we're self-entitled and pissed off at that, we decide to eat all the survivors' food before we continue towards Elazar to find out how we can help. She explains to us that the only way out of the cargo bay is through cargo bay B, which is unfortunately being swarmed with Typhon. She gives us the task of finding enough turrets, which will help take down the Typhon when they open the door to cargo bay B, and says if we do that, she'll give us the key code for the door. We take a peek for ourselves, and indeed we do see a lot of Typhon in cargo bay B. We're given two ways to do this. We can either go after the turret fabrication plan Elazar told us about, or we can search around and find some turrets. We head back to the main area, and because it's a bit dark, we use our glue gun to sneak into this maintenance tunnel, which grants us access to the power panel. Once we sneak in, we can turn on the power. Now the lights are on, it helps us find a couple of extra turrets. The first one we find is this broken down one, and we can see based on the HUD that it's identifying us as hostile. Now this could be a problem later, which believe me, it is, but for now we bring it back and set it up where it belongs. We find two more turrets and we place them down in the area, and now I don't know why I thought I needed more, but I explore a stupid amount of time before resigning to the fact I'm going to need the fabrication plan. With that, we reluctantly head outside and we space drift to the place where the plans are kept. When we're there, we kill this weaver before unlocking this safe and collecting the plans. We float back to the cargo bay and then to the fabricator to create more defensive systems. We end up creating 3, and to save everyone time, let's skip over that part where I brought them all back and set them up. I deploy all the turrets, which in an absolute slap in the face, the game tells me I only needed 3. Now well, we have 7 and the more the merrier. I immediately take back that last sentence, because as I go to unlock the door to let the Typhon into the gates of hell, the turrets identify me as hostile. Due to this, I have to readjust all 7 of their positions and then I go unlock the door. Absolute chaos ensues and I have no idea what happened, but for some reason everyone starts shooting me from all directions and I get killed. This whole thing was an absolute comedy of errors, and the next 30 minutes of my game time was just the turrets killing me over and over again. So let's just skip to our successful mission. Once we kill all the Typhon, Eleazar thanks us and we go to leave through Cargo Bay B, when I realise too late that I forgot to deactivate the turrets, so like cowards, they shoot me in the back, killing me. Now I promise you no more red herrings, we actually successfully finished the mission this time with some well placed recycler cards and we continue through Cargo Bay B. Now I know I played this part stupidly, but this Gates of Hell mission deserves to add a point to our counter. 1, for breaking the isolation of this game, but 2, because of all the ways you can access the turrets. We explore the cargo bay and find cargo bay container 3232, which is tied to Dr. Gallagher's whistleblower quest, so we find this computer, unlock it to see what's inside. When searching the container, we find Quentin Purvis's body, and a thumb drive which confirms the information that neuromods were being made from human victims. Which isn't all that mind-blowing because we already knew that. With that sorted, we proceed into the life support section, where on arrival we are met with this phantom, but also contacted by an employee called Michaela Ilishin. So you don't have to hear me try to pronounce her surname, we're just going to call her Michaela. She tells us she can help us bypass the lock, but we'll have to access the reactor control room and force a reset. She also drops us a random hint that she's dying, and that some booster shots in her office will save her life. But then she weirdly tells us not to bother about it. Yeah, sure, I'm sure you don't want us to get the medicine that's going to save your life, Michaela. Before we can even think about that morally unambiguous choice though, we need to get to her first. On the way to the control room, we see a sign that says escape pods. Because Morgan is shown a few times as a coward, we head to the pods to try to escape. Fortunately for Michaela, but unfortunately for us, the escape pods are fake, which I somewhat recall a billboard telling us at the start of the game. Before anyone notices we tried abandoning ship, we return to our mission and attempt to access the control room. Unfortunately for us, a nearby technopath who's camping in a water treatment plant is stopping us from accessing it. So we have to parkour up a few vents and pass, which allows us to access the Typhon. Once we make our way in, we use a mix of human and Typhon offensive strategies to defeat him. With that out of the way, we can turn on the power to the water treatment facility. Nothing too noteworthy happens here, other than us extracting some eels. Unfortunately for this guy though, if you fall into a vat of eels in the Prey universe, you don't turn into Electro. Now that we're done with that Spider-Man reference, go watch that Too Long Didn't Play by the way, we can leave the water plant and head back to the reactor control room. Once again, we have to use our glue gun to get around a blocked door, so we climb through this ventilation system to progress forward. We continue onwards into the coolant chamber where we have to take down a few Typhon. As we attempt to move forward onto Michaela, we're informed by January that we're being hunted by the Nightmare Typhon, which we saw much earlier in the game. This happens randomly throughout your playthrough, and I'm going to add a point to our counter as it's always intense. Because these chases are on a timer, I'm able to wait this one out while I speak to Michaela, who calls us and tells us that to get to her we need to unlock this large door. She says an employee by the name of Talia Brooks should have a keycard. Now I haven't played Prey for a long time, so I couldn't remember exactly where her body was, so I spent about 20 minutes just doing random shit trying to find her. After searching around aimlessly for way too long, we find her body literally sitting right next to the door we needed to get through. We pry the card from her cold charred dead hands and then move forward. Now that we've become an all-powerful being, we kill this phantom with one kinetic blast, and then we go see Michaela, who looks worse for wear. She explains to us that to bypass the lockdown we need to continue to the reactor control room and completely shut off Talos I and reboot it. Once again, she not so subtly mentions her medicine. January calls us and tells us a bit more lore, that back before Morgan was amnesia riddled, he found out about Michaela's medical condition which was making her sick. January tells us that we hid her condition so she wouldn't get sent back to Earth. Because we're no longer playing as a Psycho Morgan who kills people for exotic material, we make a dash back through the station to go get her medicine. On the way back, that nightmare I spoke about earlier intercepts us, and we try to do this cool slide through its legs, which ends up with us getting stomped on and killed. After respawning, we start sprinting back again and make our way through the cargo bay to get to the Talos I exterior. Now don't tell me my Morgan isn't a good guy, because I'm subjecting myself to a zero gravity section to save Michaela's life. We fly to our destination and pick up the booster shots, and it's weird because Michaela's calling us at this moment, begging us to just forget about it.
Morgan, we're running out of time. Are you outside the station? Where? Are you trying to reach my office? Leave the booster shot. It's not worth it. It's too late for me, alright?
Now if you didn't want the medicine, Michaela, you wouldn't have mentioned it. As time's now ticking, we fly straight back to the cargo bay and run all the way back to Michaela where we give her a medicine. To do that, we shove this needle in her neck, and this booster shot is so good it makes her teleport from here over back to this pole. And then she just acts like nothing happened, thanking us for our service. And now that our karmic balance is restored, we head to the reactor control room to reset the station. Once we're there, we float down onto this control room and use our mimic trick to find our way in. After reading the instructions for the procedure, we activate the switches, which begins the reactor emergency procedure. During the procedure, the lights shut out, and unfortunately it turns out there's a fault with the power diverters. And of course, it's our job to go fix it, and because we don't have the repair skill, we have to look around for a new one. On our search, we again find a locked area, which we have to use our mimic ability to turn into this water bottle to access. Lucky for us, with great mimic power comes great diverter responsibility, and we find a brand spanking new one in this area. We bring it back and fix the reactor diverter before we return to the control booth and continue the reboot procedure. This time it goes off without a hitch, with the caveat that it spawns in a technopath. Alex contacts us and tells us he's willing to stop being an arsehole, and he'll tell us the truth if we head back to his office. To get out of the reactor room, we repair this grab shaft and head back to make our way to his office. Once we're upstairs, we heal up using this medbot, then voluntarily head back to the Talos I exterior. My initial plan in this playthrough was to start floating back to the hardware labs to finish another side quest. On the way there, Michaela contacts us and tells us to meet her in our office. We finally arrive back at the labs and see the power's been turned off, which blocks us out of the side quest, so we run straight back to the Talos I lobby. On the way there, we also get a call from Igwe, who's also waiting for us in our office. He tells us to meet him, but rather than go there straight away, we stop by the trauma center and use the freeze keycard to access his office. We look through his computer and find out that Morgan had recently had a psychological test with Councillor Cole. However, to access it, we need to do a convoluted puzzle with a decryptor code and a transcribe. Basically, the way to access this information is to redo that test we did at the start, which showed our biases against overweight people, and by selecting specific answers, we unlock this safe on the wall which holds Morgan's psych evaluation.
You seem frustrated.
I have months that are just gone. I've been listening to the logs, reading the research, playing catch-up.
Do you know how many times we've had this conversation? This is the 5th time.
Does it always go the same way?
Not always.
What does that mean?
What do you think it means?
Well, I think it means you should be concerned as my counselor.
You left yourself a message. Would you like to listen to it?
No.
I think it would help.
I said no, that's not me.
Why do you say that?
I don't know, I just know.
You agreed to this. This was all your idea.
Welcome.
Yours and
Maybe I can help
Alex's.
you.
I didn't agree to any of this, all right? That Morgan is not me. I would never... Do you know what's going on in psychotronics?
The transcribe reveals to us that Morgan was questioning his memory loss and struggling with who he is. He begins to lash out about the experiments happening in psychotronics, but due to his aggression, he ends up getting drugged and Alex is called. We head back to our office and meet Igwe and Michaela. Nothing really happens here except a bit of back and forth, and Michaela gives us a bit of background on her father who was on Talos I as a prisoner. This comes with a quest line, but because it's a too long didn't play and we're only covering the main story with some side quests, I definitely recommend following this up in your own playthrough. It's worth doing. Because our Morgan is a filthy coward and is still a bit selfish, rather than help Michaela find her father, we run back to the Neuromod division to tie up a few loose ends. The first is to find December, and that hunt is very easy because he's quite literally next to the door, but has been destroyed. From him, we pick up Alex's safe code, which will help us escape through his escape pod later on. Next, we make our way to Holden Graves' office and find his computer, which allows us to renew our Neuromod fabrication license so we can return to crafting unlimited Neuromods. The game doesn't like this very much, so it summons a nightmare to chase us down. We head back to the lobby and find the nightmare, where we take it on head to head, with this fight ending in this cool action shot with our shotgun.
They cannot keep you safe.
As we do this, the chef is still talking shit to us over the phone, but we've sort of drowned him out by now. Now that we've downed a nightmare, we feel like the king of Talos I, so we head to the elevator to go to Alex, when all of a sudden... that fucking chef. We try again and make our way successfully into the elevator after deactivating the charge and make our way up. Something goes wrong on the way up and the lights go out and this phantom spawns in the lift with me. I completely panic and get killed by it. We go again, and this time when the phantom spawns, he gets a buckshot to the face, so we finally arrive to the top of the elevator and can enter the arboretum. Once we're there, I go to heal up at the medical machine and... for fuck's sake, I got done again. We cool ourselves off and run to Alex's grab shaft and input the code where we arrive at his office. Unfortunately, we have a stalker, so we have to take care of him before we can enter. Now that we're all alone, we can enter Alex's office. Alex calls us and tells us he's not going to be joining us in person, and the only reasoning I can think of this is so the players don't shoot him on sight. So instead he gives us a password to his computer and says that it'll explain everything. Before we watch it though, we continue December's quest and find this hidden room using a recycler charge which leads us to Alex's safe. We use the code we got from December to access it, and it unlocks a key to Alex's suite. We learn the key to his escape pod is hidden in his suite in the crew quarters. We also find a transcribe of ourselves saying rather than destroy Talos I, we need to escape it and warn everyone about what's happening. After this, we decide to watch the video Alex has been talking up all game. It activates a looking glass display behind us which we watch. It shows Morgan and Alex working together and Morgan having telekinetic powers. We see them discuss corals surrounding the station that it may be some sort of transmitter. We then hear Morgan discuss the neuromod testing on himself and talk to Alex about a way to nullify the Typhon threat that if it ever got out of hand, he would never, ever destroy Talos I. Alex contacts again and rightfully explains everything that Alex has done to this point was done in collaboration with Morgan. He tells us he just wants a version of Morgan back we just saw. He explains to us that the device we were talking about was a massive null wave device we could create by learning more about the coral. He provides us with a psychoscope upgrade, which will let us scan the coral to learn more about it, and promises that once we've done that, he'll give us his arming key, because he believes we'll no longer want to destroy the station. If we just reverse up a little bit and we play back that video, we also see a whiteboard that looks oddly familiar to the one I told you to remember at the start of the game. Remember that? Now note that rubbed out code on the bottom of the whiteboard, by the way, because it's going to be important to our counter later. Now that we're ready, we equip our Coral Scanner 5000 and head outside to go learn more about it. Once we get outside Alex's office, we head through Talos I and back into space, where January calls us and poses us an existential crisis-causing speech. He makes us think about who the real Morgan is, and just because the Morgan that didn't want to destroy the station came first, does that make him the real Morgan?
I've been thinking about the video Alex showed you. Your brother believes that version of you is the true Morgan. But why? Just because it came first?
If you've made it this far, give me your thoughts in the comments, and now let's continue and find out where it goes. Before we go any further though, I'm going to add another number to our counter for just how good this story is. Once we arrive at our destination, we have to enter this Weaver Den to get the scannable nodes. It's taken me a whole playthrough to finally realise how effective our Typhon lure is, as I use it to lure away the Weavers and their Crystoids, scanning the coral nodes before making a quick escape. After that great escape, we start heading back to Alex's office, but first our cowardly Morgan decides to take a detour to crew quarters. On the way there, we receive a call from Alex who tells us we need to upload the coral data we got from the nodes to his computer, but he warns us once this is done, the Typhon are going to use their plot device sensors and they'll be able to tell what's happening. Shortly after this, we arrive at the crew quarters and we head up to the executive suites where we break into Alex's room. In here, we find his hidden escape pod key before making our way back to the Arboretum. Now that we're back at the Arboretum, and because we've had it with these motherfucking Typhon on this motherfucking station, our cowardice wins. We head back into Alex's office and climb on the roof and make our way to his escape pod. We prepare the pod, and even though January is trying to guilt trip us into staying, we're a coward, we've made up our mind, and we push forward. Alex also calls us and decides to stop us, but because we'd rather be an alive coward than a dead hero, we activate the pod, and thus ends Prey, and there's Too Long Didn't Play. Wait, what the fuck? System error? Ah, shit. We start to hear Alex and an operator talking about our decision when we get killed and sent to a death screen. Now that we've been shamed for being a coward, we decide to become the hero Talos I deserves, and the one it needs right now. So we forget I tried to abandon ship and we head back to Alex's office where we upload the coral data. In true Prey fashion though, of course this goes wrong, and the signal's intercepted and we hear a broadcast from a man named Walter Dahl, who's arrived on Talos I on direction of the TranStar Board of Directors. We listen to Dahl take control of the station where he asks all employees to report to the shuttle bay to meet him. For some reason we don't get the chance to do that as these military grade operators break into Alex's office and try to kill us. Now this makes me think Dahl wasn't here to save us. Once his bots are destroyed, Alex and Morgan formulate a plan to head to Dahl's shuttle which is located in the shuttle bay. The theory is they'll be able to use his system on board to track Dahl down. As we start making our way there, January tells us Dahl is able to track us through our tracking bracelets, and if we want any chance to deceive him, we can deactivate it. This is actually a pretty cool idea, however I completely ignore it as it doesn't change anything at all. Igwe also calls us, and as if he's part of the Dishonored universe, he asks us not to kill Dahl, but instead find a non-lethal way to take him out. Igwe asks us to meet him in our office so he can explain further his plan. As we head to our office to meet Igwe, we hear Alex transmitting a broadcast to everyone on board Talos I. In case it wasn't obvious enough, he explains that Dahl isn't there to save everyone on the station, but instead to kill everyone as their liabilities and save the research data only. We arrive at our office and hear Igwe's plan out. He tells us if we can just knock Dahl out, we could potentially remove his directive neuromods, which would make him forget his mission, but we could manipulate him into commanding his shuttle back to Earth, which would save all the survivors. At this moment, we're also contacted by a man named Luther Glass, who tells us he's stuck in the trauma center and asks if anyone can save him. Our sense of duty overwhelms us, so we head straight there, but rather than be met with a person in need, we've been tricked by Dahl's bots intimidating Glass and are ambushed. Because they're robots and didn't have the foresight to lock us in, we just turn around and run out of there. We start heading to the shuttle bay, and I know there's a bit of a critique on Prey that once Dahl arrives, the game basically turns to shit and becomes more frustrating than fun, but I tend to disagree, and I think the faster last act of the game adds urgency to the situation. But this is only provided you've upgraded your Disruptor stun gun of course, because if you haven't, fuck this part, it sucks. Once we arrive in the shuttle bay, we see it's been taken over by Dahl's operated bots and turrets. We sneak around the place, eventually entering this pilot room where we find the shuttle control room key. We make our way up towards the shuttle control room and take this leap of faith to get there. After taking out this measly bot, we use this terminal to extend the jetway, which provides us access to Dal's ship. Now I've always wondered looking at this gap if you can just fly over there, but I've never tried it. Once that's extended, we fly over there and head inside the shuttle. As a fuck you to him trying to kill us, we eat all of his shit, and then listen to the transcribe where we find out Dal's mission parameters. It turns out our dad William Yu was the one who directed Dal to Talos I to kill all the staff and obtain the evidence of the experiments and research occurring there. With this information, we also find out the location of Dal's tech officer, who's located somewhere in the Neuromod division, so we set out to go take care of business. On our way there, Dal decides to call us to gloat that is currently filtering toxic gases into the cargo bay, which will kill Elazar and the team that is stuck in there. He spells out to us that the only way to stop this is to go to life support. Oh gee, I wonder if that's a trap. Now that we're no longer a coward, we decide to head to life support to save everyone, as I believe we've formed a bond with Elazar and the team after that absolute clusterfuck that from now on is going to be referred to the Gates of Hell incident of 25. We eventually arrive in the oxygen filtration room in life support, and I don't know if I subconsciously did this, but I just started randomly dicking around with things, first removing the blockage from a fan, then fiddling with air controls. I feel like this whole section could have been planned a bit better by Dal, because he's literally standing in a room opposite us and we just see him get knocked out. We end up going to the room that Dal's located in and fix the oxygen problem, and we save everyone in the cargo bay. We look at Dal's limp body before dragging him around a bit, but ultimately leaving him there unconscious for Igwe to collect him. After that we just sort of dawdle back to the Talos I lobby. Once we arrive, Igwe contacts us and tells us he somehow dragged Dal's unconscious body through this alien-infested station and has him prepped in the Neuromod division. Now I don't know if Igwe is ripped under those clothes with a sleeper build similar to that of Ned Flanders, but I tried dragging that guy around and there's no way that could have been possible. However, as long as we didn't have to drag him, I'm happy, so we head to the Neuromod division and meet Ned and Dal in the volunteer testing room. Igwe has prepped Dal in this chair, so on his command we activate the procedure and remove Dal's neuromods. This gives Dal the awareness of a dementia patient as he struggles to remember where he is and looks around the room confused. As with all stand-up citizens, we gaslight the bloke into thinking we're on his side, and we've helped him following him receiving a head injury. Through manipulation of a brain injury patient, we eventually convince Dal to help our cause, and he agrees that when the time comes he'll pilot his shuttle off of Talos I for us. Seeing as we're already in the Neuromod division, now's a good time to go track down Dal's tech officer. We look high and low and definitely don't just follow the waypoint marker to find his tech officer, who is this adorably cute operator named Casper. Aww. We then destroy him mercilessly. We're finally in the final stretch now, and with everything sorted, we plan to make our way back to the Arboretum, as Alex calls us and tells us he's finally willing to see us. We jump back in the lift that now gives us PTSD since that phantom attack, and arrive back at the Arboretum. Because we've run this path so many times, we'll skip ahead to where we arrive at Alex's office. Once we arrive, for a second we think the game's bugged out and Alex is invisible due to this waypoint. We then realise he's just hiding in this stupid hidey hole of a safe room. Alex tells us he's willing to give us the arming key provided we hear him out first. We don't have too much choice other than cold-blooded murder, so we listen to a monologue about how nullifying the Typhon is a much better idea than destroying them. He also starts explaining to us that he's figured out that the coral was being used to broadcast a message across the stars, but he doesn't know who to yet. Following this, he gives us a fabrication plan to our Grand Typhon nullifier, which we have no intention of using. Because we listen to a monologue, Alex goes to give us the arming key, when the mother of all Typhon must have heard us talking about him and spawns in out of nowhere. This Apex Typhon is super imposing and intimidating, and it grabs hold of the station. Unfortunately for us, it knocks it so much, we go back into 0G. This thing's arrival has also knocked out Alex, so we don't have to listen to him speak about his nullification plan anymore, so let's add a point to our counter for that. Even though he's done nothing but make our lives difficult, he's still our brother, so we navigate the awkward 0G controls and drag him to safety, placing him back in his hidey hole. After we've placed his fat lazy body back into a safe room, we lock the door behind him. From there, he somehow makes this conveniently quick recovery and calls us, thanking for saving his life. Touche, Alex. I didn't want to navigate the 0G either. This basically sets up the grand finale of our playthrough, with two decisions to make. We either nullify the Typhon and give Alex back the brother he wants, or destroy the station with the two arming keys we've worked hard for all game. Because we're not idiots and there's a big fuck off Apex Typhon currently trying to eat us, we elect the destroy option. With our mind made up, we float down to the lobby to head towards our big finale. If the stakes weren't high enough already, Igwe, Elazar and Michaela all call us and plead us to do different things. Igwe's the only psycho though who doesn't want us to destroy the station. We make our way down to the power plant to destroy the station, and we only have one goal in mind, thinking about nothing else, when all of a sudden January calls us and tells us this.
Hasn't occurred to you. I'm sure it will eventually. Don't do it. I can't predict what would happen if you scan the Apex, but all my models point to suffering.
Who in their right mind would think about scanning that thing? What the hell? Because January said that line though, it kept me up all night, and after I finished this playthrough I couldn't sleep, so I ended up googling what happens if you do scan it. Apparently nothing happens, you just lose all but 1 point of your health and side points. The more you know. Morgan finally arrives at the power plant and inserts and then activates the 2 arming keys. This causes us to have more visions, where now it's clear that Alex and operators are standing over our body. Now that the self-destruct is locked and loaded, we plan to head to the bridge to escape on Dale's ship, when the crazy chef that we definitely didn't forget about calls us to rattle more nonsense. Now this happens every time I play Prey, and I'd call you a liar if you said you didn't do it too. But at this point it's not even worth engaging in the enemies, so I just sprint past all of them back to the lobby where we can head to the bridge by travelling through the Arboretum. We go for one last ride in the lift and head up to the Arboretum, and now we're speed running to the end. We head straight to this grab shaft and head down to the bridge for the big finale. Once we arrive, Michaela and Igwe contact us, and we find out that Dale's ready to fly us off of Talos I. Unfortunately for us though, there's one last moral dilemma we have to face before the end of the game. Alex and January have both made their way up to the bridge, where they're standing right next to the computer which will activate the self-destruct. They do their best to convince us one last time that they're right and the other is wrong. Alex has a pretty convincing argument telling us that once we activate the self-destruct, January plans on killing us. This pisses January off, so he knocks Alex unconscious and admits to us that that actually is his plan. Because I didn't do all of this shit for nothing, and because our Morgan is a filthy coward who doesn't want to sacrifice himself, we destroy January. We make our final decision and activate the self-destruct sequence, putting us on a timer to the end game. Because we don't want to let our brother die, we do our very best to drag Alex with us to make our way to our escape. But because this guy's so damn fat, we only make it so far before we have to make the hard decision that he has to go down with his ship. What a hero. On the way out though, we have one loose end to tie up, and we decide to take a detour down to the escape pods. In one of the escape pods, we see an old friend as we find the crazy chef trying to make his escape.
Evacuate Talos I.
Morgan, you... This pod will work, but I do not know how to...
And then we shoot him in the face. Wait, that would have been a good time for me to make my shotgun joke. Can we play his speech again?
Morgan, you... This pod will work, but I do not know how to...
I call shotgun. It was a great decision to murder this bloke, because as soon as we do, we find that he's riddled the escape pod with recycler charges, and for once through this entire playthrough, I escape without dying first. Now that we've fulfilled our promise to Danielle's show, we head back to the Arboretum for our final escape. Now this is my canon ending to Prey, and whilst you can head to the shuttle bay to escape with Dale and the crew, I think Morgan has hurt too many people in his time running Talos I. As we know that the employees are in safe hands with Dale, able to pilot them to safety, we elect to go alone, where we decide to use Alex's escape pod on the top of his office. This time, because we aren't cowardly running away from our duty, the game will allow us to exit this way. We activate the escape pod, where we make an isolated escape and see the pod heading to Earth. And with that, the game ends and we roll credits, where once again we hear our favourite song on the channel made by our favourite game director.
I keep having this dream.
It's time to beat the mind game. And now it's time to beat the mind game. And now it's time to beat the mind game.
Oh, turns out I was wrong. I didn't realise this was a Marvel property, and there's still one more scene to go. All of a sudden the game kicks back into gear and we're taken to a hidden location for one last twist. We wake up in a familiar position in which we see Alex and some operators standing over us. It turns out those visions we were having throughout the game weren't visions after all, and they were the only thing that was actually happening during the whole playthrough. We're tied up and we just have to lie there as we listen to Alex and the operators judge us for our actions we made throughout the game like arseholes. It turns out that we're actually a Typhon who they're experimenting on with mirror neurons to see if we can feel any empathy. We first get critiqued by this arsehole operator who has the voice of Igwe. He talks about how we saved Dale and saved him and vouches for us, giving us an overall pass mark. The next operator to judge us is the voice of Michaela. She talks about how we blatantly killed that bloke in Psychotronics for his sweet exotic materials, but ends up giving us a pass mark somehow because we got her a medicine. She tells Alex that she'd let us live. Elazar's bod is up next, and because of the Gates of Hell incident of 25, she also deems us worthy. Last but not least, we have Danielle Show's officer who finishes off our final judgment. She gives us a perfect 4 out of 4 because we fulfilled our promises to kill this chef for her, and because she liked our shotgun pun. Trust me, she actually says that. They all seem to agree that we made the right decision to destroy Talos I. Because we passed the test, Alex doesn't immediately terminate us, which actually can happen in the bad ending in this game. He swings us around and gives us a full explanation of what's going on. It turns out that the Earth has been taken over by the Typhon species at some stage. If you play the Mooncrash DLC, you'll get a bit of a hint on how that happened. He explains to us that the game we just played was actually a reconstruction of the real Morgan's memories, and before you ask, we don't know or find out where Morgan is. Based on the decisions we made along the way, that would be able to tell if the experiments are a success or not. To make things simple, Rather than putting Typhon abilities into humans as Morgan and Alex were previously working on, Alex began working on putting human emotion and empathy into Typhon in hopes that it would help him save the world. With that all explained, remember when I said before that we had one more choice to make earlier on? Well, that was a lie. We actually have one more to do here. In the final decision for the game, we get the choice to either kill Alex and all the robots, meaning the Typhon will reign supreme, or shake his hand and shake things up like old time as the last chance to save Earth. We picked the latter, giving us a more hopeful ending, and with a firm handshake, only outmatched by the one in Predator, we end our Too Long Didn't Play recap of Prey. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of Too Long Didn't Play. As I said, this is my favourite game of all time, and I hope I did it justice. Now that we're here, let's take a look at our final score for our I can't believe they gave this a 4 out of 10 counter, with the overall result being that IGN are incompetent. Please leave a comment and let me know your thoughts on Prey in the video, as I'm always looking for ways to improve. And remember to subscribe to see our upcoming best or worst game ever review of Prey, which I'm sure you already know the ending of that. Make sure you go play Prey for yourself, as there's tons of content I didn't cover on this playthrough, and I think everyone should experience it for themselves. For a quick update for the channel, I'm going to stop locking myself into Too Long Didn't Play games at the end of my videos, so leave a comment on any games you'd like to see me cover in the future. Until then, we'll see you next time. I've been Nodvoro, this has been Too Long Didn't Play, and you've been great.